there are some people like, but I don't think that's more the norm. I think actually what SEO is still fighting is this slope of enlightenment, where amazingly you still have people that you're struggling with to try to say like, yeah, really ought to like maybe have a unique title on each of your pages. That's kind of worked since 1996 and it's still kind of working. And I think it's gaining wider adoption. It was interesting to me, Hitwise had done a post about how Perez Hilton, which always confused me because I think, shouldn't he be Paris Hilton? And I get mixed up, but I'm not really up on pop culture as much as I should be. I'm working on that. He got more traffic from Facebook than Google last month. It was the first time. And then suddenly everybody went nuts saying, that's it, it's all Facebook, it's all over for Google and search or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know if you're a celebrity site and you have viral links, maybe. But I kind of still think search is going to drive you a lot of traffic, so you shouldn't ignore it and just hope it's going to be all Facebook. Paid search, I think, is very similar on the hype scale as SEO. Social media, I think that there are higher peaks. Especially if you look at something like, say, the amount of attention a Second Life got, right? I mean, it was, Twitter to the 10th degree of excitement, and to the degree of how it's just seemed kind of gone away. So I think also the difficulty with social media is it's one word that encompasses so many things, as I'll get into, that's very difficult, where you have some things can be disappointment and overhyped, and some things that just kind of ticked along and done well. Which brings me over to SMM and what Cecily Kraut had asked about. Is it the new link development? Well, this is something we did for our track at SMX West in 2007, the idea that these two things combined could be wonder twins, right? Activate, form of a giant link builder, right? Anybody else grew up in the 70s? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Ben 10, it changes the thing, right? It turns into the monster. That's kind of like Wonder Twins, only Gwen's a lot hotter. And the older Ben 10. And the older Ben 10, not the young Ben 10. So yeah, social media can build links, leverage authority sites. It has an impact on your search listings. These are examples of where actually it gets very close to some of the things you need to be thinking about as a search marketer. There are search marketing aspects to social media marketing. And so I went through and I did this thing that now I even wonder if I'll have time to show you. I won't, so let's just skip it. No, we're going to try to go through it anyway. Where I went through and I tried to explain to people who are looking at social media sites the different ones that are out there and how search-like they are. So, and I did this up as an article so you can read it later on. And it was a presentation I'd done at AdTech. Practically nobody saw my presentation and fewer read the article. So I thought, oh, like a captive audience. So social media is not all the same. We say social media, but you're talking about things like social news, where Dig, Reddit, Yahoo Buzz, where people that are over there and that are interacting with each other are doing things that are completely different than when you're on a social bookmarking site, as opposed to social networking sites or social knowledge sites or social sharing sites. And so when I start talking about how search-like these are, I did this chart, which has nothing on it, but the way it will work, as you will see, is that this is the demand or the amount of search intent. So when somebody, what I mean by search intent, somebody's after something, right? Like a pipe breaks, water's gushing down, you go to the search engine, you type in, I need a plumber in this zip code. That's a strong search intent. You have something you immediately need solved. When you go to Google News and you're kind of like, oh, what's going on in the world today? Oh boy. That's not a strong, that's search intent because you're interested in something like news. You don't know exactly what it is. It's more discovery. And then somebody just says, hey, dude, check out this video. It's really cool. It was on Daily Show last night. That's not even search intent. You didn't even know you wanted it. And then you're like, okay, well, if you tell me, I'll go check it out. So that's less, more. And then there's the branding aspect to some of these things. Because search has a strong branding aspect. When you do a search, you can get an impact of what people think or not. And then there's the amount of traffic, which are those dots. So this is Google, right? You get a lot of search intent, high amount of search intent, high amount of branding, because so many people are using it and they can impact it, and a huge amount of traffic. That's the big circle. So social news sites, people are sharing recent information on them, something that's new. They're sharing news. Lots of traffic, right? We have things like the dig effect, unless, they bury your site because they don't like you. But then they don't bury sites, but they do. There's a medium amount of demand. People are going there because they're interested in something new. They just don't know what it is, right? I didn't know that there were 25 ways to, do something. But fortunately, I get them broken down into 2 articles, one with 12 points and another one with 13. And then there's a branding medium. There's some brand names. When you're on Dig or some of these places, there's some brand impact that comes to it. But it's not a huge one as much as it was in the past. For example, you could do a search for Apple Firewire. This doesn't work now, but it did for a little period of time, where if you did that on Google, you got this listing at Dig, and then if you clicked over into Dig, you saw this person who was really upset because Apple dropped Firewire. It's like, if I could have an extra USB port, that's fine, get rid of the Firewire, but that's just me. So there's a little bit of branding value with social news, but it used to be I could do a search and find lots and lots of stuff from Dig coming up for any brand, and I don't see that as much anymore. I don't know if other people are finding that as well, but so I put it down here. Lots of traffic, some search intent, a little bit of branding. So if you're trying, and the goal when you're looking at search marketing when you're looking at social media from a search marketer's perspective is you'd want stuff as close to over here as possible with as big as circles to it as possible. So Dig, it's interesting. You generate those links and stuff. Social bookmarking. People share any kind of information. It doesn't have to be news. In fact, they constantly share stuff that you're like going, God, that was like from 1997. Lots of traffic. Low demand. People are kind of going there, I want to get something new, and they still don't kind of know what it is, nor do they think it is even going to be new stuff. And there's relatively low branding because I'm not seeing so much of this showing up in the results as I have had in the past. You may get some branding that'll change. This was an example over at Yahoo where they wanted to experiment with showing how many people had bookmarked a site in Delicious, and perhaps they might give you a number count next to that if they noticed it. So this may change in some of the search results. So I shoved bookmarking down here. Social networking sites like Facebook and everything, right? Traffic is low. Perez Hilton as an exception. I've never heard of a site say they got crashed by Facebook. I've heard of Facebook apps, I suppose, crashing, but you just haven't tended to hear that sort of thing. Nor have I seen things like Facebook, be reported as really coming up that significantly with people's traffic logs on a web-wide basis. But perhaps that'll change. Slight discovery, what people are sharing. Branding, I think, is relatively low. Again, for a while, I could constantly find some stuff that seemed to be coming up from some of these places. Now I don't see it so much. Here's an example where you did a search and you get Barack Obama's MySpace page. So, okay, from an individual, you may be getting it. Or for Steve Jobs, if you do this search, there was nothing coming up. And if you wanted to get rid of the secret diary or this or that, maybe he could create a social profile for himself and push some of that stuff out if he wanted to. So I kind of shoved them down over here into this little spot there. Social knowledge, everybody's sharing with each other, Yahoo Answers, etc., Wikipedia. Medium amounts of traffic. Some people who are especially good with it will say, yeah, it drives traffic. Good demand. People are actively looking for answers to particular things, and high branding, especially with Wikipedia, right? Because the law requires to be at the top of Google. So if you didn't have Wikipedia, then it might be medium. So I kind of shoved the knowledge sites over here. And then finally, the social sharing sites, where people are sharing videos, images, or the fact that they're waking up late, or everything else. Dude, I'm on the toilet and I'm Twittering. Dude, too much information. Medium traffic, it's noticeable. Especially more and more people, I think, are saying, wow, Twitter really does drive traffic. That's what I mean, is like you start to notice it over time. The demand's high. People in these places are actively seeking something in a search aspect. And there's high branding. These sites do well. So you search for Canon. I was getting the Flickr page for Canon, although it's not necessarily devoted just to Canon itself. You do your search results for Coke. You get Mentos. You get Extreme Experiments. What you don't do is get a video from Coke itself, because apparently they don't have their own YouTube channel, and they really ought to rethink that. And I love, like a JetBlue, it's like, what don't you do? Yeah, we're on Twitter, we got our help page, we got a website, we got YouTube where we're promising things. We even fly airplanes when we're not socializing. So they sit up over here. So when you're looking at all this stuff and you're trying to think, oh, social media, I got to get me some of that social media. For me, I'm going, well, these knowledge sites or these sharing sites, these are very search-like. This is probably where I'm getting the most bang for my buck if I've got to dive in somewhere. And yeah, Dig's going to send me a lot of traffic and it will generate those links, but maybe I need to think about the amount of time I'm going to spend on that, because this might be more the conversion aspect that I'm looking for. And being out on Facebook may be useful, and some people can work that very well, but maybe that's not necessarily the place where I start off if I'm looking for search intent. I got 5 minutes and 140 more slides. No, I may not get to them all. We'll see how it goes. Cecily had asked again if I could update the who powers whom chart. If you never saw this, I used to do a chart to show you, like, okay, AOL gets their paid results from Overture, but their unpaid results come from Ink2Me, except for when they have the exception, they take some of the stuff from LookSmart. And then Bruce Clay had one where there were all these arrows that just, you couldn't understand it, but it was really pretty to look at. The chart's much simpler today. It looks like this. Google powers Google and owns the web. Yahoo and Microsoft say, thank you for allowing us to be on the chart. And they power themselves. And that's it. If you add up all those numbers, the remaining amount is 5%. And by the way, this is it over time. Google is, I was working on this chart, and my son, who's 10, who's never really learned charts, right? Anything, he came and he looked over my shoulder and he goes, wow, Google's doing really well. And I was like intrigued. I was like, you actually understand that? He goes, yeah, because see the little lines going up there. He's like going, Live's not doing very well. I was like, you must stop speaking in range of a Microsoft computer because you'll be in trouble. So yeah, I mean, Google's doing really well. I mean, see, back here, you really needed who powers who. You needed to really understand it a lot more. Now it's like, yeah, okay, Google powers everything and there's some other people. So people always ask, well, is there going to be a Google killer? And I say, no. Although I read this weekend it's going to be Wolfram Alpha. So that'll be the Google killer because I read it on the interwebs. And so they're all right. It'll probably be as killer as PowerSet and Cool. You're all using those now, right? Right. So the other 5% don't really register out there, and nor do I think that there is going to be a Google killer that's going to come along and steal away all of Google's traffic. They're like a habit, and I won't light up a cigarette to prove it, but you know, people smoke Google like they smoke cigarettes, and it doesn't kill you. They like it, and it works really well for them. So what I say is it's not really that you're going to have like a Google killer, but they're going to be cut in a lot of ways. There are a lot of different flowers that will be out there. There are a lot of other choices. There are a lot of places where Google's not the top thing, which is opportunities for marketers. Twitter search, for example, is getting more and more buzz. We're at the trough opposite height, Everest of disillusionment, appointment, where, you know, that good thing. You know, it is really useful. You can go over there and find out what people are saying on real-time news. I just ran a survey, which is really fascinating, where you know you can actually see that people are saying when they actually do a twit themselves, they are effectively putting out a search query and asking their friends and followers to answer it. And if that is not good enough, you can actually go to Twitter search and see answers to certain things that are out there. And there's opportunities for advertisers. For example, if you were PG&E, and this was a search that happened, and everybody's like going, is PG&E out? When are we getting it back? There are no ads. You can't have ads right now. And you can have your customer advocates working on this. But you can imagine at some point, PG&E might be able to buy a standing unit saying, we know the power is out, and it's coming back. Those of you that somehow are still connected to the internet. My favorite is Time Warner because they always go out on my broadband, so I always have to fire up my card, my wireless card, to get back online to find out that yes, they did go down. It wasn't my thing. So me, if they ever do this where I can buy the ads on Twitter, I'm going to be out there saying, see, they still suck. So go get Comcast or just say they suck. I don't know. There are some opportunities, killerettes. And I don't have time to go through these, so I've shortened down to one slide, but there are things like I mentioned, Urban Spoon or Yelp or Eventful. These are not only search engines in and of themselves that have their own unique databases, but they're also very popular on mobile devices where, Google doesn't own them. Google doesn't run it. If I want to find out what event that's going on, Eventful is far more useful to me than Google. If I want to find a restaurant, Urban Spoon is far more useful to me than Google. They just don't compete in that area. Ironically, they do compete with themselves, Google does, with the Googlettes. No. So you have YouTube, Google Blog Search, Maps. There was a question about local, which I can't get into, but the fact that when you do a search these days, in some responses, the top of the page is filled with a map and filled with the listings that are showing up there. These are crucial areas that you can tap into, plus entirely spammable. Now, they've all fixed that. It's all good, and there is no more spam in Google Maps because they told us that. So my main takeaway here is that it's more than Google Web Search that's out there. That yes, local is an opportunity. That yes, there are other players out there. It's not so much who powers whom for the major search engines anymore, but it's more that where is the audience doing other kinds of searches and how can I tap into them? These are the ones I'm throwing away. You can read them later. It mainly says that search results are getting more diversified and that content will get returned in the long term. Because I can't do it because we're out of time, which is where I was going to take questions if we had time, but I don't think we do, so I can't. But I'll be around, so you can ask me questions there, unless I'm going to the bathroom, then you might want to let me come out. Anyways, and that's just a summary of stuff that we do, which you can read on your own time. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for having me out. It's great to be here. Thank you.